The summer evening had started like any other in the quiet suburb of Westbrook, Ohio. Children's laughter echoed through backyards, sprinklers hissed rhythmically across manicured lawns, and the smell of grilling burgers drifted on the warm breeze. But at 7:47 p.m., everything changed for the Martinez family. Officer Sarah Blake was finishing her patrol shift, looking forward to getting home to her own family, when the radio call shattered the peaceful evening. All units, we have a code Adam, 3-year-old female missing from 2847 Drive. Last seen approximately 20 minutes ago. Subject is wearing a pink dress with white flowers. Answers to Emma. Family is on scene and extremely distressed. Sarah's blood ran cold. 20 minutes. In law enforcement, everyone knew the statistics. The first 3 hours were critical in missing child cases, but the first 20 minutes could mean the difference between a happy reunion and a tragedy. She immediately radioed her response and made a U-turn, her patrol car's lights cutting through the dimming twilight. In the back of her vehicle, Duke stirred. The 4-year-old German Shepherd, her K9 partner for the past 2 years, sensed the sudden urgency. His ears perked up, his dark amber eyes alert and focused. Duke wasn't just any police dog. He was cross-trained in both patrol work and search and rescue, one of only 3 such dogs in their department. Sarah and Duke had found lost hikers, located evidence in criminal cases, and once tracked down an Alzheimer's patient who had wandered from a nursing home. But a missing 3-year-old. That was every officer's nightmare. Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities as she sped toward Drive. At 3 years old, Emma could have wandered off chasing a butterfly or a cat. She could be hiding in a neighbor's shed, frightened by all the commotion. Or, and Sarah forced herself to consider the darker scenarios, she could have been taken, hurt, or fallen into danger. The neighborhood backed up to a densely wooded area with a creek running through it. If Emma had wandered into those woods. She arrived at the scene within 4 minutes. The Martinez home was already surrounded by chaos. 2 other patrol cars had arrived, and neighbors poured out of their houses, forming impromptu search parties. Sarah spotted the incident commander, Sergeant, coordinating teams near the driveway. But what caught her attention was the group huddled by the backyard gate. A woman in her 30s collapsed on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably, supported by an older woman who looked equally devastated. Sarah quickly suited up Duke with his search harness, the bright yellow vest that identified him as a working K9. She grabbed Emma's scent article, a small stuffed white rabbit that the grandmother had quickly retrieved from the child's bedroom, and approached Sergeant. "Blake, thank God you're here," said, his weathered face tight with concern. The family was having a barbecue. Grandmother turned her back for maybe 2 minutes to grab something from the kitchen. When she came back out, the gate was open and Emma was gone. The mother, that's Jennifer Martinez, she's beside herself. The boyfriend went searching toward the main road, but I've got a bad feeling about those woods. Sarah nodded, her jaw set with determination. "Duke and I will start there. How many people have already gone into the woods?" "Just one neighbor, but I called him back. Didn't want to contaminate the scent trail." "Good thinking." Sarah knelt beside Duke, letting him smell the stuffed rabbit thoroughly. His nose worked overtime, memorizing every molecule of scent. "Duke, find Emma." The dog's demeanor shifted instantly from alert to focused. His nose dropped to the ground, sweeping back and forth as he processed the overwhelming sensory information. Sarah had learned to read Duke's body language like a book, the angle of his tail, the position of his ears, the tension in his shoulders. Right now, he was sorting through hundreds of scents. The family, the neighbors, the food from the grill, freshly cut grass, and somewhere in all of that chaos, the trail of one small 3-year-old girl. They started at the backyard gate where Emma was last seen. Duke circled twice, then his head snapped toward the tree line. He'd caught something. Sarah felt the familiar pull on the leash as Duke locked onto the scent trail, and they moved quickly toward the woods. The sun was sinking rapidly now, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and deep purple, beautiful under any other circumstance. but now it only meant they were losing precious light. Sarah clicked on her high-powered flashlight, the beam cutting through the growing shadows between the trees. Behind her, she could hear Jennifer's anguished cries. "Emma, baby, please, Mommy's here." The woods were denser than they appeared from the street. Oak and maple trees crowded together, their branches forming a canopy that blocked out most of the remaining daylight. Underbrush grabbed at Sarah's uniform pants, and exposed roots threatened to trip her with every step. But Duke moved with purpose, his nose never leaving the ground, pulling her deeper into the forest. Sarah's radio crackled. "K9 unit, what's your position?" "Approximately 200 yards into the woods, heading northwest," she responded, slightly breathless from the pace. "Duke has a strong track." They'd been searching for 12 minutes when Duke suddenly changed direction, veering sharply to the left. Sarah trusted him completely. His nose was tens of thousands of times more sensitive than hers. If he said Emma went this way, Emma went this way. The sound of running water grew louder. The creek. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest. A 3-year-old near water in the dark, potentially disoriented or injured. The scenarios running through her mind grew increasingly dire. Then Duke stopped abruptly, his body going rigid. A low growl rumbled from deep in his chest, not aggressive but warning, alert. Sarah's flashlight swept forward and her breath caught in her throat. Ahead, the ground simply disappeared. A steep ravine, at least 15 feet deep, carved by years of water erosion. And there, near the edge, illuminated in her flashlight beam, was a tiny pink shoe. Sarah's heart stopped. The tiny pink shoe with its white flower pattern lay on its side, just inches from the ravine's crumbling edge. Her flashlight beam trembled as she swept it across the precipice, searching desperately for any sign of the child. Duke whined low in his throat, his nose pointing downward into the darkness below. "Emma," Sarah called out, trying to keep her voice calm despite the terror clawing at her chest. "Emma, sweetie, can you hear me?" Silence. Only the gurgling of the creek far below and the rustle of leaves in the evening breeze answered her. Sarah keyed her radio with shaking fingers. "Dispatch, I need rescue team to my location immediately. I have evidence of the child near a ravine, requesting additional lighting and rope rescue equipment." "Copy that, K9 unit. Teams are en route. ETA 7 minutes. 7 minutes. An eternity when a 3-year-old might be lying injured or worse at the bottom of a ravine. Sarah secured Duke's leash to a sturdy tree trunk, then carefully approached the edge, testing each footstep before transferring her weight. The soil was loose, treacherous. Recent rains had saturated the ground, making everything unstable. She dropped to her stomach and inched forward, angling her flashlight down into the ravine. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating rocks, exposed roots, and there, a flash of pink fabric about 15 feet down, tucked onto a narrow ledge that jutted out from the ravine wall. "Emma," Sarah's voice cracked with relief and renewed fear. "Emma, baby, can you hear Officer Sarah?" For a heart-stopping moment, nothing. Then the pink fabric moved and the softest whimper drifted up from the darkness. The sound a small, terrified animal might make, or a traumatized child. "Emma, sweetheart, it's okay. You're going to be okay." Sarah kept her voice steady, soothing, even as her mind calculated the horrifying possibilities. How had Emma ended up on that ledge? Had she fallen? How badly was she hurt? And most critically, how long would that ledge hold? Another whimper, slightly louder this time. Then a small voice, thin and trembling. "Mommy." "Mommy's coming, baby. But right now I need you to stay very, very still, okay? Can you do that for me? Don't move at all." Sarah could see her better now as her eyes adjusted. Emma was sitting on the ledge, her back pressed against the ravine wall, her little arms wrapped around her knees. The ledge was barely 2 feet wide enough for a small child to sit, but one wrong move, one panicked scramble, and she would plunge another 20 feet to the rocky creek bed below. Behind Sarah, Duke began barking, not his alert bark but his distress bark. He sensed the danger, wanted to help, but was held back by training and his secured leash. The barking echoed through the woods, and Sarah saw Emma's head snap up, her eyes wide even in the darkness. "Monster," the word tore from Emma's throat in a scream of pure terror. "Monster dog, monster's gonna get me." Sarah's blood turned to ice. Emma was scrambling backward, her small body pressing harder against the ravine wall, her feet kicking at the air. Loose dirt and small rocks cascaded down from the ledge. The child was panicking, and panic would kill her. "Duke, quiet," Sarah commanded, and the barking stopped immediately. But the damage was done. Emma was now hyper-focused on the perceived threat above rather than the very real danger beneath her. "Emma, no, wait. He's not a monster, sweetheart. That's just Duke. He's a good dog, a nice dog." But Sarah could see the terror on the child's face, could see how every word about the dog was making it worse. Emma's eyes kept darting upward, searching the darkness for the monster she'd heard. Sarah's mind raced through her training, through every child's psychology course, every search and rescue scenario. She had minutes, maybe seconds, before Emma's fear overcame her and she made a fatal move. Traditional rescue protocol said to secure the area, wait for the rope team, maintain verbal contact with the victim. But traditional protocol didn't account for a 3-year-old scared out of her mind, teetering on a crumbling ledge 15 feet above rocks and rushing water. "Emma, look at me. Look only at me, okay?" Sarah made her voice as gentle and warm as she could, like she was talking to her own daughter. "Don't look up, just look at my light. See my light, I'm right here." The child's eyes found the flashlight beam, locked onto it like a lifeline. Her small chest heaved with rapid, panicked breaths. Sarah could see tear tracks cutting through the dirt on her face, could see her pink dress torn at the shoulder, could see blood on her knee. But Emma was alive, conscious, and for this moment still. "That's so good, Emma. You're being so brave, the bravest girl I've ever met." Sarah kept talking, kept the child focused on her voice. "Now I need you to do something really important. Can you do something important for me?" A tiny nod. Emma's lip trembled and fresh tears spilled down her cheeks. "I need you to stay exactly like you are, like you're playing freeze tag. Do you know freeze tag?" Another small nod. "Perfect. So you're frozen now, okay? Frozen like ice cream. Can you be frozen like ice cream?" I'm scared," Emma whimpered, her voice so small Sarah almost missed it over the sound of the creek below. "I know, baby, I know you're scared, but I promise you I'm going to get you out of there. Officer Sarah promises." Behind her, Sarah heard voices, the rescue team arriving. Relief flooded through her, but she couldn't break eye contact with Emma. The moment she did, the child might look up, might hear Duke again, might panic and fall. "Emma, I need to tell you something really important about that dog you heard. His name is Duke, and he's not a monster at all. He's actually—" But before Sarah could finish, Emma's eyes went wide again, fixed on something above Sarah's head. Duke had moved to the edge of the ravine, his large silhouette backlit by the rescue team's approaching flashlights. To a terrified 3-year-old in the dark, he must have looked enormous, threatening, like something from a nightmare. "Monster!" Emma screamed again, and this time her feet slipped on the loose soil. For one horrifying second, Sarah watched as the child slid toward the edge of the narrow ledge, her small hands grasping frantically at nothing but air. Then, impossibly, Emma caught herself on an exposed root, her fingers wrapped around it with desperate strength. She hung there, suspended between the ledge and oblivion, and whispered 2 words that would change everything. 2 words that were barely audible over the rushing creek and Sarah's pounding heart. 2 words that were part question, part desperate hope, part prayer. Nice puppy. The world seemed to freeze in that impossible moment. Emma dangled from the exposed root, her tiny fingers white-knuckled around the gnarled wood, her feet swinging in empty air above the rocky creek bed below. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, every muscle in her body coiled to spring forward, knowing that any sudden movement could startle the child into letting go. But it was those 2 words, nice puppy, spoken in the smallest, most hope-filled voice Sarah had ever heard, that changed everything. Not a statement, not a demand, a question. A 3-year-old child, hanging literally between life and death, was asking if the thing she feared most might actually be safe, might actually be good, might actually help her instead of hurt her. Sarah's throat tightened with emotion, but she forced her voice to remain steady, calm, reassuring. Yes, Emma. Yes, sweetheart. Nice puppy. The nicest puppy in the whole world. Behind her, she could hear the rescue team's boots pounding through the underbrush, could hear Sergeant barking orders for lighting and rope equipment. But Sarah didn't turn around. She couldn't. Emma's eyes were locked on Duke, who stood at the ravine's edge, his silhouette no longer backlit but illuminated by the rescue team's powerful LED lights. Duke, to his eternal credit, seemed to understand the gravity of the moment. The German Shepherd, trained for aggression when needed, for protection and pursuit, stood perfectly still. His tail, which had been tucked low in stress, slowly began to wag. Just a small movement, side to side, the universal canine signal of friendliness. Emma's grip on the root shifted slightly and Sarah's heart leaped into her throat. Emma, baby, keep holding on tight, okay? Keep being frozen like ice cream. But look at Duke. See his tail wagging? That means he likes you. That means he wants to be your friend. Friend? Emma's voice was barely a whisper, but Sarah heard the shift in it. The fear was still there, drowning in terror, but underneath it something else. Curiosity. The innate desire every child has to connect with animals. The best friend, Sarah confirmed. She could hear the rescue team setting up behind her now, could hear the clink of carabiners and the whisper of rope being uncoiled. But she also knew they needed time. Time to set anchors, time to establish safety lines, time to prepare for a technical rescue of a child on an unstable ledge. She needed to keep Emma calm, keep her engaged, keep her holding on. Duke, Sarah called softly, and the German Shepherd's ears perked up. Duke, sit. The dog immediately sat, his posture relaxed but attentive. Emma's eyes widened slightly, watching this monster obey commands. Duke, lie down. Duke lowered himself to the ground, resting his head on his paws, looking for all the world like an oversized, harmless puppy. The powerful animal that could take down a fleeing suspect, that could search through rubble and locate survivors, that could strike fear into criminals. That same animal now made himself as small and non-threatening as possible. See, Sarah said gently. He's lying down, he's being a good boy. Duke is the boy. A tiny sound escaped Emma, not quite a laugh, but something close to it. A hiccup of emotion that might have been the beginning of relief. Her grip on the root seemed to strengthen slightly. Officer Blake, a low voice said behind her. It was from the technical rescue team, his voice barely above a whisper. We're setting up now. I need about 3 minutes to establish anchor points, then I'm going down. Keep her talking. You're doing great. Sarah nodded slightly, never taking her eyes off Emma. 3 minutes. She could do 3 minutes. Emma, do you want to know a secret about Duke? Sarah kept her voice light, conversational, as if they were sitting in a kindergarten classroom instead of teetering on the edge of disaster. Another tiny nod from Emma. The child's arms were trembling now, whether from fear, exhaustion, or the strain of holding her own weight, Sarah couldn't tell. Probably all three. Duke's favorite thing in the whole world is when kids pet him. He loves it so much his tail wags so hard his whole bottom wiggles. Have you ever seen a dog's bottom wiggle? This time definitely a small laugh. That's silly. It is silly, it's super silly. And you know what else? Duke knows tricks. Want to see a trick? Emma's voice was stronger now, more present. The immediate panic had subsided, replaced by a child's natural fascination. Duke, roll over. The German Shepherd, who had tracked criminals through city streets, who had located missing persons in dense forests, who carried himself with dignity and purpose, rolled onto his back with his paws in the air, looking absolutely ridiculous. His tongue lolled out of his mouth, and his tail thumped against the ground. Emma actually giggled, a real, genuine sound of delight. He's funny. He is funny, and silly, and nice. Duke is a nice puppy. Sarah emphasized the word nice, reinforcing what Emma had asked, validating her hope that something scary could actually be safe. Behind Sarah, she could hear preparing his descent gear, could hear the soft whir of rope through carabiners. Almost time. Emma, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen now, okay? A friend of mine, his name is, he's going to come down to where you are. He's going to help you back up. And when you get back up here, Duke is going to be so happy to meet you. Would you like to pet Duke when you get back up? Yes, Emma said, and for the first time since Sarah had found her, the child's voice held something other than fear. It held anticipation. Can I really pet him? You absolutely can, I promise. Duke promises too. But first, you need to keep holding on tight to that root, okay? Keep being the bravest, strongest girl. I'm strong, Emma said, as if trying to convince herself. I'm very strong. You are. You're the strongest girl I've ever met. Appeared at Sarah's side, already clipped into his harness, his descent device ready. He gave Sarah a quick thumbs up, then began his careful descent into the ravine. Sarah watched Emma's eyes track the movement, watched her tense slightly as this new person entered her space. That's Emma, he's Duke's friend. All of Duke's friends are nice. Nice, Emma repeated like a mantra. Nice puppy, nice friends. Reached the ledge in less than a minute, his movements smooth and practiced. He positioned himself carefully beside Emma, speaking in the same soft, reassuring tone Sarah had been using. Hey there, Emma. Boy, Duke is so excited to meet you. He's been telling me all about you. Dogs can't talk, Emma said, but there was a hint of a smile in her voice. Oh, but they can. They just talk in dog language, barks and tail wags and ear wiggles. And Duke told me, was securing a harness around Emma's small body now, working quickly but gently, that you are super brave and super strong. Within 2 minutes had Emma secured in a rescue harness, had her safely attached to his own gear. Okay, Emma, we're going to go up now. Like climbing a tree, okay? I've got you. You're completely safe. The ascent was painfully slow, taking each movement with careful precision. Sarah held her breath the entire time, watching as inch by inch, foot by foot, they rose toward the top of the ravine. Duke remained in his down position, but his tail never stopped wagging, his eyes never left Emma. Once head cleared the edge, multiple hands reached out to assist. Sarah grabbed Emma the moment she was close enough, lifting the child away from the ravine and into the safety of solid ground. Emma's small body was trembling all over, her dress filthy and torn, her knee still bleeding, but she was alive. She was safe. And the first thing Emma did when her feet touched the ground wasn't to cry for her mother. It wasn't to collapse in relief. Instead, she looked up at Sarah with dirt-streaked cheeks and asked in a voice filled with innocent hope, "Can I pet the nice puppy now?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she smiled. "Yes, sweetheart. Yes, you can." Emma approached Duke slowly, cautiously, one small hand extended. Duke remained perfectly still, letting her come to him on her own terms. When her fingers finally touched his fur, when she felt the warmth and softness of his coat instead of something to fear, Emma's entire body seemed to relax. She sank to her knees beside the dog and buried her face in his neck. And Duke, the fierce K-9 officer who had seen the worst of humanity, who had faced down dangers most people never would, simply laid his head gently over the child's shoulder and let her hold him. It was in that moment, as Sarah watched a traumatized 3-year-old find comfort in the thing she'd feared most, that she first began to notice the other signs. The bruises on Emma's arms, the way the child flinched slightly when raised voices came from the direction of the house, the way she whispered into Duke's fur, I was hiding from the yelling." And Sarah realized that they hadn't just rescued Emma from a ravine. They might have rescued her from something far worse. The walk back through the woods felt surreal. Emma refused to let go of Duke, her small hand wrapped tightly in the fur at his neck, walking pressed against his side as if the dog were a living shield. Sarah carried the child's other shoe, found at the ravine's edge, and watched carefully as they emerged from the tree line into the chaos of flashing lights and gathered crowds. The moment they cleared the woods, a woman's scream pierced the air. Emma. Jennifer Martinez broke through the police line and ran toward them, her face a mask of relief and anguish. But Sarah noticed something that made her police instincts flare. Emma didn't run toward her mother. Instead, the child pressed closer to Duke, her grip tightening in his fur. "Baby, oh my God, baby." Jennifer fell to her knees, reaching for her daughter. Emma finally released Duke and allowed herself to be pulled into her mother's embrace, but Sarah saw the child's eyes. They weren't looking at her mother with relief. They were scanning the crowd behind her, searching for something, or someone. "Where is he?" Emma whispered against her mother's shoulder. "Is the loud man here?" Jennifer's body went rigid. Her eyes, already red from crying, suddenly filled with a different kind of tears, fear, shame, and something that looked like defeat. "Baby, don't," she started, but Emma had already spotted him. Jennifer's boyfriend of 18 months stood near the house with his arms crossed, his jaw clenched so tight Sarah could see the muscle jumping even from 20 feet away. He was a large man, over 6 feet tall with a linebacker's build, wearing a white t-shirt stretched tight across his chest. His face held none of the relief the other family members showed. Instead, he looked annoyed, angry even. "She always does this," said loudly, his voice carrying across the yard. "Always wandering off, causing drama, making everyone worry. Kid needs discipline, not coddling." The grandmother, who had been crying into a tissue, turned toward with a look that could have melted steel. "She's 3 years old. She was terrified and lost in the woods. Because she doesn't listen. Because Jennifer lets her run wild." "That's enough." Sergeant stepped between them, his hand raised. "This is not the time or the place." But Emma had heard everything. The little girl buried her face deeper into her mother's shoulder, her small body shaking. And then, in the innocent way that only young children can, she said the words that would blow this entire night wide open. "I wasn't playing, Mommy. I was hiding, like you told me to when uses his mean voice and hurts you." The silence that followed was deafening. Every person in that yard, the officers, the neighbors, the family members, went completely still. Jennifer's face drained of all color. Its expression shifted from annoyed to dangerous in a heartbeat. "She doesn't know what she's saying," said quickly, too quickly. "She's confused, traumatized. Kids make up stories." "I saw it." Emma's voice, small but determined, cut through his words. "I saw him push Mommy. I saw him make her cry. That's why I went to find a hiding spot, but I got lost." Sarah's heart was pounding now, her training taking over. She caught Sergeant's eye, saw him nod almost imperceptibly. He'd heard it too. They all had, and now that Emma had spoken, they couldn't. Jennifer was shaking, her arms wrapped protectively around her daughter. "Emma, sweetie, we can talk about this at home." "Ma'am," Sarah stepped forward, her voice gentle but firm. "I need to speak with you, alone." "She doesn't need to speak to anyone," interjected, moving closer. "Jennifer, take Emma inside, now." But Jennifer wasn't moving. She was looking at her daughter, really looking at her, as if seeing something she'd been trying not to see for months. The bruises on Emma's arms. The way the child had run into the woods rather than stay in a house where was yelling. The fear in her baby's eyes every time he raised his voice. Sarah saw the exact moment Jennifer made her decision. The mother's shoulders straightened slightly, and she looked up at Sarah with tears streaming down her face. "I want to talk," she said quietly. "I want to talk to you." Jennifer's voice held a warning note. "I said I want to talk to her." Jennifer's voice cracked, louder now, defiant. Emma startled in her arms, and Jennifer immediately soothed her. "It's okay, baby. Mommy's okay. Mommy's tired of being scared." Took another step forward, his face darkening. "You're going to regret this." "Sir, I need you to step back." Sarah moved between and Jennifer, her hand instinctively moving to her service weapon. Duke, sensing the shift in energy, positioned himself in front of Emma and Jennifer, a low growl rumbling in his chest. The grandmother suddenly spoke up, her voice shaking but determined. "I've seen the bruises. For months I've seen them. On my daughter's arms, on her ribs, on her back. She said she was clumsy, that she'd fallen, that she'd bumped into things. But I knew. God help me, I knew, and I didn't say anything because Jennifer begged me not to." "This is insane," snarled. "You're all turning on me because some kid got lost in the woods and made up a story." "I saw it too." The voice came from behind them. Everyone turned to see Mrs., the neighbor from 3 houses down, stepping forward. She was elderly, probably in her 70s, and her hands trembled as she spoke. "I saw you, 2 weeks ago, through my kitchen window. I saw you grab Jennifer by the throat and slam her against your car in the driveway. I saw her crying. I saw you yelling in her face. And her voice broke, I didn't call the police because I was afraid. Because you saw me watching, and you stared at me through that window like you were daring me to do something." More neighbors were stepping forward now, emboldened by Mrs.'s confession. "A man from next door. I've heard the yelling, the crashing sounds, things breaking." A younger woman. "I saw Jennifer at the grocery store last month with a black eye. She said she'd walked into a cabinet door." The evidence was piling up, witness after witness, each one adding another brick to the wall of truth that had built around Jennifer and Emma. Sarah watched as face cycled through emotions: anger, panic, calculation. She'd seen this before in abusers. They were always so confident, so certain they had control, until the moment everything fell apart. "Officer Blake," Sergeant said quietly, moving to her side, "I think we need to continue this conversation at the station, all of it." Sarah nodded, then turned to Jennifer. "Would you be willing to come to the station to give a statement? You and Emma both. I promise you'll be safe. We have victim advocates who can help." Jennifer looked down at Emma, who was still clinging to her, then at her mother, who nodded encouragingly. Finally, she looked at, and for the first time since Sarah had seen her, Jennifer Martinez looked angry instead of afraid. "Yes," Jennifer said, "I'll tell you everything. Every hit, every threat, every time he made me feel like I was crazy for being scared. Every time he hurt me and then told me it was my fault. Every time Emma hid in her room because she was terrified. I'll tell you all of it." "Jennifer, you're making a huge mistake," started toward her again. "Sir, do not move." Sarah's voice was steel now. "Officer Martinez, officer, please escort Mr. to his vehicle and ask him to wait there while we sort this out." 2 uniformed officers immediately moved to comply, positioning themselves on either side of. For a moment, Sarah thought he might resist, might try to fight his way to Jennifer. But he was smart enough to know that would only make things worse. Instead, he allowed himself to be led away, but not before throwing one last look at Jennifer. A look that promised retribution, that said this wasn't over. Emma watched him go, then looked up at Sarah. "Is the loud man going away?" Sarah knelt down beside the child, making herself eye level. "We're going to make sure you and your mommy are safe, Emma. I promise you that. Duke promises too." As if understanding his name, Duke moved closer and gently nuzzled Emma's hand. The child managed a small smile, the first real smile Sarah had seen from her all night. "Duke is nice," Emma said softly. "I asked if he was nice and he was." "He is," Sarah agreed. "And Emma, you asking that question, asking if something scary might actually be safe, that was the bravest thing anyone could do. You're not just brave for hanging onto that route tonight. You're brave for speaking up about. Do you understand that?" Emma nodded solemnly, then looked at her mother. "Are you brave too, Mommy?" Jennifer pulled her daughter close, tears streaming freely down her face now. "I'm going to be, baby. Starting right now, Mommy's going to be brave too." As Sarah watched this mother and daughter beginning the long journey from victim to survivor, she felt Duke lean against her leg. She reached down and scratched behind his ears. thinking about how a 3-year-old simple question nice puppy had opened the door to so much more than a rescue from a ravine. Sometimes, Sarah realized, the scariest thing we can do is ask if something might be different than what we've been told, might be safe instead of dangerous, might be help instead of harm. Emma had asked that question about Duke, and in doing so, she'd shown her mother that it was okay to ask that same question about everything else in their lives. Retry time moved differently in crisis moments. Sarah had learned that in her 8 years as a police officer. Seconds could stretch into eternities, while minutes could vanish in a heartbeat. Right now, watching Emma dangle from that root with those 2 hopeful words nice puppy hanging in the air, Sarah knew she had perhaps 30 seconds before the child's small fingers gave out. Yes, Emma, yes, the nicest puppy. Sarah kept her voice warm and encouraging, fighting every instinct that screamed at her to just grab the child and pull her to safety. But she was too far away, and any sudden movement could startle Emma into letting go. His name is Duke, and he really, really wants to meet you. Behind her from the technical rescue team was already in motion. She could hear the whisper of his rope, the soft click of carabiners, the controlled breathing of a professional preparing for a dangerous descent. But even as fast as was, Sarah knew it wasn't fast enough. Emma's fingers were slipping. The child's face was contorted with effort, her small body swaying slightly in the night air. Duke, Sarah called, and the German shepherd's ears perked up attentively. Duke, speak. The dog let out a single, short bark, not aggressive, but friendly. The kind of bark a dog makes when excited to see someone they like. Emma's eyes widened, but this time not with fear, with curiosity. He talked to me. He did. He said hello in dog language. Duke says hello to all his friends, and he really wants to be your friend, Emma. Sarah was making this up as she went, operating purely on instinct and desperation. But Duke is very, very sad right now. Do you know why? Emma's grip shifted slightly on the root. She was listening, engaged, her young mind latching onto the story. Why? Because he can see that your hands are getting tired and he wants to help you, but he can't unless you hold on just a little bit longer. Can you hold on? For Duke, he's so worried about you. I'm trying, Emma whimpered, and Sarah could see the exhaustion setting in. The adrenaline that had kept the child clinging to that root was fading, being replaced by the reality of a 3-year-old's limited strength. I know you are, sweetheart. You're doing such a good job, the best job ever. Sarah could see in her peripheral vision now, descending into the ravine with controlled urgency. 20 feet away, 15. Duke wants to show you something. Do you want to see? Emma breathed, her voice barely audible. Duke, roll over. The German shepherd executed the command with theatrical enthusiasm, rolling onto his back and wriggling his shoulders against the ground, his legs kicking in the air. It was utterly ridiculous, a 70-pound police dog acting like a playful puppy. And Emma laughed. It was a tiny sound, almost lost in the night air, but it was real, a child's genuine delight breaking through terror. He's so silly, Emma said, and for just a moment she seemed to forget where she was, forget the danger, forget everything except the absurd image of a big dog being goofy. He is silly, Sarah agreed. And you know what? When you get back up here, Duke is going to let you rub his belly. He loves belly rubs, but you have to hold on tight until my friend can reach you, okay? Was 10 feet away now, moving with practiced efficiency down the ravine wall. His cut through the darkness, and Sarah saw Emma's attention drawn to the moving light. Emma, that light you see, that's my friend. He's Duke's friend too, and he's coming to help you climb back up like a big adventure. Have you ever been on an adventure? No, Emma said, her voice small again, uncertain. Well, this is going to be your first big adventure, and when you tell people about it tomorrow, you can say you went on an adventure with a police officer and a really silly dog named Duke. Was 5 feet away now. Sarah could see the intense concentration on his face, the way he tested each handhold and foothold before committing his weight. The ravine wall was unstable, rocks and dirt crumbling with each movement. Emma's voice was calm and friendly as he drew closer. "My name is, and wow, you must be really strong to hold on to that root for so long. I bet you have super muscles." "I don't have super muscles," Emma said, but there was a hint of pride in her voice. "I'm just 3. "Just 3? No way, most 3-year-olds couldn't hold on like you are. You must be at least, maybe 4 or 5. "I'm 3, Emma insisted, momentarily indignant, and Sarah wanted to hug for his brilliance. He was giving Emma something to focus on, something other than her fear and exhaustion. Reached the ledge, positioning himself carefully beside Emma. Okay, you're 3, but you're definitely the strongest 3-year-old I've ever met. Now I'm going to put my arm around you and then we're going to play a game. Have you ever played koala bear?" Emma shook her head, her eyes huge in the darkness. "It's easy. You're going to hold on to me like a koala bear holds onto a tree, nice and tight. And I'm going to hold on to you too, and we're going to climb up together. But first," was already securing a small harness around Emma's torso as he spoke, his hands working quickly but gently. "We need to put on your special climbing belt. All the best adventurers wear them." "Like Dora?" Emma asked, and Sarah's heart clenched at the innocence of the question. "Exactly like Dora," confirmed, clicking the final carabiner into place. "Okay, Emma, I'm going to count to 3, and when I say 3, you're going to let go of that root and wrap your arms around my neck. Can you do that?" "But I'll fall," Emma whispered, fear creeping back into her voice. "No, you won't. I promise you won't fall. You're connected to me now, see?" showed her the rope linking them together. "We're a team now, adventure partners, and adventure partners don't let each other fall." Sarah held her breath as counted. 1, 2, 3. Emma let go of the root and threw her small arms around his neck with surprising force, clinging to him like her life depended on it, because it did. Wrapped one strong arm around her, securing her against his chest. "Good job, perfect koala bear," praised, and then he was moving, climbing up the ravine wall with one arm while the other held Emma. His rope team above was taking up slack, providing support, but the climb was still treacherous. Sarah watched every foot of that ascent with her heart in her throat. Twice, rocks gave way under his boots. Once, a small shower of dirt and pebbles cascaded down from above, but never faltered, never showed any sign of uncertainty that might frighten Emma further. "Are we almost there?" Emma's small voice drifted up. "I want to see Duke." "Almost there, little koala. Duke is waiting for you. I can hear his tail wagging from here." It was true. Duke's tail was sweeping back and forth across the ground like a metronome, his entire body quivering with the effort of staying in his down position, when every instinct probably told him to move closer to help. When his head finally cleared the edge of the ravine, multiple pairs of hands reached out to help. Sarah was first, grabbing Emma the moment she was close enough, lifting the child away from the precipice and into the solid safety of flat ground. The moment her feet touched earth, Emma's legs buckled and Sarah caught her, pulling her close. "You did it, Emma. You were so brave." Sarah's voice was thick with emotion, with relief so profound it made her dizzy. But Emma wasn't looking at Sarah. She was looking past her at Duke, who remained obediently in his down position, his tail still wagging, his eyes locked on the child with what could only be described as concern. "Nice puppy," Emma whispered, not a question this time, but a statement of fact, a truth she discovered in the darkest moment of her young life. Sarah carried Emma the few steps to where Duke lay and carefully set her down beside the dog. "Duke, release," she said softly, and the German shepherd immediately rolled onto his side, making himself smaller, more approachable. Emma reached out with one trembling hand and touched Duke's fur. The dog remained perfectly still, letting her explore, letting her take her time. Then Emma did something that made every person watching, Hardened police officers and rescue workers wipe at their eyes. She leaned forward and hugged Duke, pressing her dirt-streaked face into his neck, and whispered, "Thank you for not being a monster." Duke, in response, gently laid his head over Emma's shoulder, the way he'd been trained to provide comfort to trauma victims. But this felt different, more personal, as if the dog understood that this small child had been brave enough to ask if something scary might actually be safe, and he wanted to reward that courage. Sarah let them have that moment, that connection between a traumatized child and a gentle giant of a dog. But even as she watched, her trained eye was cataloging other details. The way Emma's dress was torn at the shoulder, the bruises on her arms, distinct finger marks, too deliberate to be accidental, the blood on her knee that looked more like a fresh scrape than an injury from the ravine. And most tellingly, the way Emma suddenly stiffened as voices carried from the direction of the house. Adult voices growing louder, more distinct. One voice in particular, a man's voice, raised and angry, made Emma press closer to Duke, her small body tensing with what Sarah recognized as practiced fear. "I was hiding," Emma whispered into Duke's fur, so quietly Sarah almost missed it. "I was hiding from the yelling." And in that moment, Sarah realized that rescuing Emma from the ravine had been just the beginning. The real rescue, the one that might save this child's life in ways that had nothing to do with physical danger, was only just starting. The interview room at Westbrook Police Station was designed to be non-threatening: soft lighting, comfortable chairs, a table with rounded edges, and a box of tissues always within reach. Sarah sat across from Jennifer Martinez, watching as the woman clutched a styrofoam cup of coffee she hadn't taken a single sip from. Emma was in the adjacent room with a trained child forensic interviewer and Sarah's colleague, Officer Lisa Park, who specialized in working with young victims. Through the two-way mirror, Sarah could see Emma drawing pictures with crayons, Duke lying peacefully at her feet. "I don't even know where to start," Jennifer said, her voice hoarse from crying. She was 32 years old, but tonight she looked a decade older, the weight of months, maybe years, of abuse carved into the lines around her eyes. "Start wherever feels right," Sarah encouraged gently. "There's no rush. We have all the time you need." Jennifer's hands trembled as she set down the coffee cup. It wasn't always like this, was. God, he was so charming at first, attentive, generous. He swept me off my feet after my divorce from Emma's father. I thought I'd found someone who would love us both, protect us both. She laughed bitterly. "Protect us? That's ironic." Sarah remained quiet, letting Jennifer find her own pace. She'd been trained in trauma-informed interviewing. Sometimes the most important thing an investigator could do was simply listen. "It started small, little comments about my clothes, my friends, how I was raising Emma. He said he was just trying to help, that he cared about us. Then the comments got meaner. I was stupid. I was a bad mother. I was lucky he even put up with me." Jennifer's voice cracked. "Then came the first time he grabbed my arm, squeezed it so hard it left bruises. He apologized, said he'd had a bad day at work, promised it would never happen again." "But it did happen again," Sarah said softly. "It always happens again, doesn't it?" Jennifer looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and hollow. "The next time he pushed me into a wall, then he slapped me. Then she took a shuddering breath, then he started doing it in front of Emma. And that's when I knew I had to protect her, even if I couldn't protect myself." Sarah leaned forward slightly. "You taught Emma to hide when got violent." Jennifer nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I told her that when the loud man started using his mean voice, she should go to her room and hide in her closet or under her bed or anywhere she felt safe. I told her to cover her ears and sing songs to herself. I thought I was protecting her. But tonight when she ran into those woods, when she almost died," her voice broke completely, "that was my fault. I should have left him months ago. I should have been braver." "Jennifer, listen to me." Sarah's voice was firm but compassionate. "What happened tonight was not your fault. Abuse is not your fault. The only person responsible for his actions is himself. Do you understand that?" Jennifer nodded, but Sarah could see she didn't fully believe it. That would take time, therapy, healing. Right now, Sarah's job was to build a case strong enough to ensure never had the opportunity to hurt this family again. "I need you to tell me everything," Sarah said. "Every incident you can remember, dates if possible, but even general help. Any witnesses, any photographs you might have taken of injuries, any text messages, voicemails, anything that documents his behavior." Over the next 2 hours, Jennifer, a relationship that had devolved from fairy tale to nightmare. Sarah took meticulous notes, occasionally pausing to ask clarifying questions. The pattern was textbook domestic abuse, the honeymoon phase, the tension building, the explosion of violence, the apologies and promises to change, then the cycle beginning again. Each time, the violence escalated slightly. 3 weeks ago was the worst, Jennifer said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He came home drunk. Emma had spilled juice on his laptop. It was an accident. She's 3 and he just lost it. He grabbed her by the arm and shook her. I've never seen Emma so terrified. I got between them and he threw me across the kitchen. I hit the counter so hard I thought I'd broken a rib." "Did you seek medical attention?" "No, he wouldn't let me. He said if I went to a hospital, they'd ask questions, and if I told anyone, he'd make sure I never saw Emma again. He said he had a lawyer friend who would prove I was an unfit mother, that he'd tell them I was crazy, making things up." Jennifer's hands clenched into fists. "I believed him. I was so scared of losing Emma that I stayed, and by staying, I almost lost her anyway in those woods tonight." Sarah reached across the table, not quite touching Jennifer but close enough to offer comfort. "You're telling the truth now. That takes incredible courage, and the law is on your side, I promise you that." A knock on the door interrupted them. Sargent stepped in, his expression grave. "Blake, can I see you for a moment?" Sarah excused herself and stepped into the hallway, handed her a tablet displaying a document. "We got the warrant for phone and computer. You need to see this." Sarah scrolled through the evidence, her stomach turning with each message. Texts to Jennifer: "You're worthless. No one else would want you. If you ever try to leave, I'll destroy you. Emma needs a real father, not a pathetic mother like you." There were dozens more, each one documenting psychological abuse, threats, control tactics. But what made Sarah's blood run cold were the searches in browser history. How to get custody of girlfriend's child. Can stepfather get parental rights? Proving mother is mentally unstable. He had been systematically researching how to take Emma away from Jennifer, building his own case to maintain control. "There's more," said grimly. "We pulled his record. 2 previous relationships, both ended with restraining orders filed against him. One ex-girlfriend was hospitalized. The charges were dropped when she moved out of state, probably terrified into silence." "He's done this before," Sarah said, feeling rage build in her chest. "He's a serial abuser, and he specifically targets single mothers." "Looks that way. The DA is reviewing everything now. With Jennifer's testimony, the witnesses from tonight, Emma's statements, the electronic evidence, and his prior history, we've got him, Blake. We've got him solid." Sarah returned to the interview room where Jennifer sat staring at her untouched coffee. "Jennifer, I need to tell you something important. Has done this before to other women. You are not the first person he's abused, and if we don't stop him now, you won't be the last." Jennifer's head snapped up. "Other women?" "At least 2 that we can document. One was hospitalized, both filed restraining orders." Sarah sat back down. "This is who he is. This is what he does. And none of it, not one single moment of it, was your fault. He is a predator who targets vulnerable people." Something shifted in Jennifer's expression. The shame and self-blame that had clouded her features began to clear, replaced by something else. Anger, determination. "What do you need from me? To make sure he pays for this? To make sure he can't hurt anyone else?" "I need you to be willing to testify, to tell your story in court if it comes to that. I need you to get a restraining order. I need you to work with victim services to create a safety plan." Sarah paused. and I need you to let us help you. You don't have to do this alone anymore." Jennifer nodded slowly. "Okay, yes, all of it, whatever it takes." Through the two-way mirror, Sarah could see Emma still drawing, her small hand moving the crayon in broad strokes across the paper. Duke hadn't moved from his position by her feet, his presence a constant source of comfort. Officer Park was speaking with Emma gently, using anatomically correct dolls and age-appropriate language to understand what the child had witnessed. Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from Park. "Emma is giving consistent statements, describes multiple incidents of DV. She's very credible. This is solid." Over the next several days, the case against built steadily. Emma's preschool teacher, Mrs., came forward with her own observations. "Emma's behavior changed dramatically about 6 months ago," she in her statement. "She became withdrawn, anxious. She started having nightmares during. When I asked if everything was okay at home, she said, 'Mommy cries a lot now.' I reported my concerns to Child Protective Services, but nothing came of it." Sarah tracked down that CPS report. It had been filed, investigated superficially, and closed when Jennifer, undoubtedly under pressure, insisted everything was fine. Another system failure that could have prevented months of continued abuse. Neighbors provided additional evidence. Mrs. testimony was particularly damning. "I saw him through my kitchen window at night," she recounted. "He had Jennifer pressed against the car, his hand on her throat. I could see her struggling, see the fear on her face. When he looked up and saw me watching, he smiled. Actually smiled at me like he was daring me to do something about it. I was terrified. I'm ashamed to say I closed my curtains and didn't call police. I thought about it every day since." Evans came forward. His boss reported that had been written up multiple times for aggressive behavior toward female colleagues. "He was always just on the edge of being fired," the boss stated. "But he was smart about it, never quite crossing the line enough for us to take serious action. He knew exactly how far he could push." The district attorney, Karen, reviewed the mountain of evidence and scheduled a meeting with Sarah and Jennifer. "This is one of the strongest domestic violence cases I've seen in years," said, spreading the documents across her conference table. "We have victim testimony, child witness testimony, physical evidence, electronic evidence, prior bad acts, and multiple corroborating witnesses. Mr. Attorney is already making noise about a plea deal." "What kind of deal?" Jennifer asked, her voice steady now, stronger than it had been days ago. "He wants to plead to simple assault, maybe some anger management classes, probation, essentially a slap on the wrist." The expression hardened. "I told him absolutely not. We're going for felony domestic violence, assault, child endangerment, witness intimidation, and violating the emergency restraining order. Yes, he tried to call you 17 times yesterday, Jennifer, which violates the court order. We're seeking significant prison time." Jennifer's hand found Sarah's across the table. "Will I have to testify? Will Emma?" "Possibly. I'll do everything I can to avoid putting Emma on the stand. Her forensic interview can be presented as evidence. But Jennifer, your testimony will be crucial. Are you prepared for that?" Sarah watched Jennifer's face, saw the fear there, but also saw something else. A mother's fierce determination to protect her child, a survivor's resolve to ensure her abuser faced consequences. "Yes," Jennifer said firmly, "I'm ready. I want him to know that he doesn't scare me anymore. I want Emma to see that when someone hurts you, you can fight back. You can win." Smiled. "Then let's get to work." So arraignment took place on a gray Tuesday morning, exactly 1 week after Emma's rescue from the ravine. Sarah stood in the back of the courtroom, Duke sitting alertly at her side, as was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. His confident swagger had diminished, but the cold calculation in his eyes remained. He scanned the courtroom and locked eyes with Jennifer, who sat in the front row between her mother and a victim advocate. His lip curled into what might have been a smile, might have been a sneer, a final attempt at intimidation. Jennifer didn't look away. For 5 long seconds she held his gaze, and Sarah saw something pass between them, the ending of his power over her. When Jennifer finally turned her attention back to the judge, there was no trembling, no tears, just quiet strength. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s named, reviewed the charges. "Mister, you are charged with felony domestic violence, aggravated assault, child endangerment, witness intimidation, and multiple violations of a protective order. How do you plead?" Attorney, a slick-looking man in an expensive suit, stood. "Your Honor, my client pleads not guilty to all charges. Furthermore, we believe these charges are grossly exaggerated. Mr. is a respected member of the community, employed steadily for 8 years, with no prior convictions." "No prior convictions, but 2 restraining orders from previous relationships," Judge interrupted, glancing at the file before her. "Both cases were dropped when the victims relocated out of state. Interesting pattern, mister." The attorney's face flushed. "Those were misunderstandings, Your Honor. The relationship simply didn't work out." "I've read the police reports, counselor. Let's not waste the court's time with." Judge turned her attention to District Attorney. "Ms., what is the state's position on bail?" Stood, her posture commanding. "The state requests that bail be, Your Honor. Mr. poses a clear and present danger to Ms. Martinez and her daughter. Since his arrest, he has made 17 phone calls attempting to contact Ms. Martinez in direct violation of the emergency protective order. He has also made threatening statements to other inmates about teaching that bitch a lesson when he gets out. We have recordings of these calls and statements, which demonstrate both his disregard for court orders and his ongoing threat to the victim." "Your Honor, my client has strong ties to the community," began. "Your client has demonstrated a pattern of violence, intimidation, and control spanning multiple relationships over several years." Judge cut him off. "He has violated a protective order multiple times in the week since his arrest. Bail is, Mr. will remain in custody until trial." The gavel came down with a sharp crack. Facade finally cracked. "This is bullshit," he shouted, lunging toward the gallery where Jennifer sat. "You lying bitch, you're destroying my life over nothing. I gave you everything." 2 bailiffs immediately restrained him, forcing him back. Duke rose to his feet, a low growl rumbling in his chest, but Sarah's hand on his head kept him in check. Jennifer had flinched at the outburst, but her mother's arm around her shoulders and the victim advocate's steady presence kept her grounded. "Mister, one more outburst like that and I'll add contempt of court to your charges," Judge said coldly. "Get him out of my courtroom." As was dragged away, still shouting threats and obscenities, Sarah saw several people in the courtroom pull out their phones, recording the meltdown. That footage would be all over local news by evening. More importantly, it would be evidence, a perfect demonstration of his volatile nature, his threatening behavior, his complete lack of remorse or self-control. Outside the courthouse, Jennifer stood on the steps, breathing in the cool autumn air like a woman who'd been underwater too long. Her mother held Emma, who had stayed with a babysitter during the hearing but was now reunited with her family. "Nice puppy," Emma squealed when she spotted Duke, squirming out of her grandmother's arms to run to the dog. Sarah had brought Duke specifically for this. She knew Emma would need the comfort after the stress of the past week. Duke's tail wagged as Emma wrapped her small arms around his neck. "I drew you a picture," Emma announced proudly, pulling a crumpled paper from her jacket pocket. It showed a stick-figure girl holding hands with what was clearly meant to be a dog, both standing under a smiling sun. "That's me and Duke. We're friends." "That's beautiful, Emma," Sarah said, genuinely touched. "Duke is very lucky to have such a talented friend." "Ms. Martinez," a voice called out. A woman in her 40s approached, her press credentials visible around her neck. "I'm Tors from Channel 7 News. Would you be willing to share your story, to help other women who might be in similar situations?" Sarah tensed, ready to intervene, but Jennifer surprised her. "Yes," she said clearly. "Yes, I'll tell my story, because I stayed silent for too long and my silence almost cost me everything. The interview happened right there on the courthouse steps. Jennifer spoke calmly and clearly about the progression of abuse, about her fear, about the night Emma ran into the woods. She spoke about the shame that had kept her silent, about the threats that had kept her trapped, about the moment she decided that her daughter's safety mattered more than her fear. "If you're in a situation like I was," Jennifer said, looking directly into the camera, "please know that it's not your fault, that you deserve better, that there are people who will help you if you ask. I know it's terrifying to leave, to speak up, to risk everything, but I also know now that staying is more dangerous than leaving could ever be." The interview went viral. By that evening, it had been shared thousands of times on social media. The police department's tip line was flooded with calls, some from other victims of who hadn't come forward before, others from women in their own abusive situations asking for help and resources. Sarah's phone rang 3 days later. It was the DA. "You need to come down to my office. We've got something." When Sarah arrived, was grinning. 4 more women have come forward about 4. One from 10 years ago before he even moved to Ohio. The others from various points over the past 8 years. Each one describes the same pattern: charm, escalating control, violence, threats. 2 of them have medical records documenting their injuries. "That's incredible," Sarah breathed. "Can you use their testimony?" Under the prior bad acts rule, absolutely. It establishes a pattern of behavior. The attorney was already pushing for a plea deal, but now, smile was fierce. "Now we've got him dead to rights. He's looking at 15 to 20 years minimum, and his lawyer knows it." The plea negotiations happened quickly after that. Faced with overwhelming evidence and testimony from multiple victims, had no choice but to accept the state's terms. He pled guilty to felony domestic violence, aggravated assault, and child endangerment in exchange for a sentence of 8 years in prison with no possibility of early release, followed by 5 years of supervised probation, mandatory counseling, and a permanent restraining order protecting Jennifer and Emma. "It's not as much time as I wanted," told Jennifer during their final meeting, "but it's a guaranteed conviction. No risk of a jury acquitting him. 8 years of safety for you and Emma, guaranteed." Jennifer nodded, exhausted but relieved. 8 years. Emma will be 11 when he gets out, old enough to understand, old enough to have spent most of her childhood safe from him. She looked at Sarah. "Is that wrong, that I'm already worried about what happens in 8 years?" "It's not wrong," Sarah assured her. "It's realistic, but 8 years from now you'll be stronger. Emma will be stronger. You'll have built a life without him, and you'll have resources and support systems in place. You won't be the same person you are today." "No," Jennifer agreed softly, "I won't be." The day of formal sentencing, the courtroom was packed. All 4 of other victims were present, along with Jennifer's family, neighbors, Emma's preschool teacher, and Officer Park. Sarah stood in the back with Duke, watching as each victim gave their impact statement. When it was Jennifer's turn, she walked to the podium with her head high. She didn't have any notes. She simply looked at who sat slumped at the defense table and spoke from her heart. "You made me believe I was worthless," she said. "You made me believe I deserved the pain you caused. You made me believe no one would help me, that no one would believe me, that leaving you was more dangerous than staying. You almost succeeded in destroying me, but you failed. Because my daughter, my brave, beautiful 3-year-old daughter, taught me something. She taught me that sometimes the scariest thing you can do is ask if something might be different than what you've been told." She asked if a police dog was nice when everything in that moment told her it was a monster. And by asking that simple question, she showed me that I could ask questions too. About you, about our relationship, about whether I deserved better. And the answer was yes. I do deserve better. My daughter deserves better. And every woman you ever hurt or might hurt in the future deserves better than you. There wasn't a dry eye in the courtroom. Even Judge had to pause before delivering the sentence, her voice thick with emotion. Mister, your actions represent a fundamental betrayal of trust and a pattern of cruelty that spans over a decade. The harm you've caused to these women, and particularly to a young child, is unconscionable. It is the judgment of this court that you serve 8 years in the Ohio Department of Corrections, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. You are permanently prohibited from contacting any of your victims. You will complete a batterer's intervention program and undergo psychological evaluation. And Mister, if you ever appear before me again on similar charges, I will impose the maximum sentence allowed by law. The gavel fell. It was over. Outside the courthouse, Emma played on the lawn with Duke while the adults talked with victim services coordinators and support counselors. Sarah watched the little girl, laughing now, running, playing, free from fear for perhaps the first time in months. "Thank you," Jennifer said quietly, coming to stand beside Sarah. "For everything. For saving Emma that night, for believing me, for not giving up." "You saved yourself," Sarah replied. "I just opened a door. You're the one who walked through it." Jennifer smiled, watching her daughter. "She still talks about that night, you know, about the nice puppy who wasn't scary after all. I think Duke taught both of us, that things aren't always what they seem at first. That sometimes you have to be brave enough to look closer, to ask questions, to hope that maybe, just maybe, help is possible." Sarah reached down and scratched Duke's ears as he returned from playing with Emma. "Sometimes," she agreed, "the bravest thing you can say is just 2 words. Nice puppy retry can make mistakes. Please double-check responses."